So if we look at the Ontario strategy, and I've written, you'll see on my website, there's a book called All Systems Go, and that's the latest book. And that book criticizes most of policies and I'm focusing in this case on the United States because they were just starting into their new development. And I described the Ontario policy in that book with the evidence. So in fact, one of our colleagues, the Deputy Minister, Ben Levin, who we hired to lead the change from inside the government the first 4 years, he's now gone back to the university. But Ben Levin also wrote a book, and the title of his book is How to Change 5,000 Schools. He was exaggerating because we only have 4,900, but 5,000 is a nice round number. Nice round number. So that his book and my book both tell the actual story with evidence. And here's what it is. I'll tell you the strategy and the results. A small number of ambitious goals. We have lots of goals, but there are ones that are at the highest level, I guess, or the most important, and they are 4. Literacy, deeply defined, not narrow reading only. Numeracy, improved high school graduation, which is high school innovation. And now we've just more added early learning, 4 and 5-year-olds in particular, and also before age 4. So those are our 4 priorities. We say the Premier will go out and he'll say, this is my compass. This is what I focus on. This is what I want you to focus on. So it's important because otherwise there are too many things to be done. And we call it sometimes innovation fatigue. If you try to always innovating, always priorities, there's just too many and people get confused. Number 2, a guiding coalition at the top. I don't know whether that translates so well, but it is. By the guiding coalition, we mean that the leaders who are shaping the reform, in our case it would be the Premier, Dalton McGuinty, the Minister of Education, the Deputy Minister of Education, myself as advisor, and a few others, and we meet frequently we're meeting all the time on small 1 or 2 people here and there, but we meet every 6 weeks, and to keep the focus. And remember, our focus includes partnerships, as you'll see. So that's the second one. Third one, high standards and expectations. We have, in case of literacy and numeracy, a 4-level set of standards, which level 3 and level 1, let's take reading. Pupils can't read. Level 2, they're sort of reading the words on the page. Level 3, they can read for analysis and thinking. And level 4 is the higher order skills. So we work, we set high standards and expectations, and they are, the performance is measured by an independent arm's length agency called Education Quality and Accountability Office, EQAO. So they measure annually in grade 3, which are 8-year-olds, grade 6, let's say 11 or 12-year-olds, the reading, writing, and math around these 4 scales every year, 100% of pupils, and that's fed back to the system. So that's number 3. Number 4, investment in leadership and capacity building related to instruction. When I think of the knowledge, I think of 2 categories of knowledge that we bring together. One is pedagogy, effective teaching, and the other is how to collaborate. Collaboration in the school, collaboration across schools. So that's number 4. Number 5, mobilizing data and effective practices. So we're always looking at how are we getting anywhere? We're monitoring it, but we also have strategies to share what's working. And so, for example, one strategy is schools on the move, where we've identified schools that are getting success, and we make it easy for other people to learn from them without any pressure, but more invitational. This is working, go and take a look, and we facilitate that. So that's the 5th one. The 6th one, intervention in a non-punitive manner. We have, and this is also applies to the OECD findings, those countries that do well monitor and intervene, but not in a name and shame negative accountability, but in order to improve capacity. And that's what we do. We have a strategy called Ontario Focused Intervention Partnership, which is OFIP, and it's about helping schools get better without any attitude on our part, but investment in capacity building. Number 7, being vigilant about distractors. By that, we mean that if you stick with the priorities, in politics there are always new things coming in. we have to deal with new things, but we always make sure that they don't become the new thing that we all now move over our energy and look at that. We keep the focus, and we call it sometimes relentless focus, but keep that focus. When we evaluated the Tony Blair reform, and we continued to do some work in England, as you might know, in the first 4 years, 97 to 2001, they did quite well. They started to move forward. In his second term, 2001 to 2005, they did poor, England did in measures. And we said partly it's because Tony Blair lost the focus. He began to have too many innovations. He got involved in the war, and they had no longer the strong focus. So when we were having our re-election in 2007, we discussed with the Premier. He said, when you get re-elected, as he did, don't do what Tony Blair did and lose the focus. And he said, I won't. I will reinforce, and he'd be even more intense on this. So we've kept what one would say, stay the course, stay the focus, build on it, and so forth. So that's number 7. Number 8, being transparent, relentless, and increasingly challenging. Transparency is about 2 things: openness of results and openness of practice. Both of those things. So you know, in the teaching profession, there has been what sociologists call the phenomenon historically, the privatization of teaching, we call it, they call it, which means that teachers are autonomous behind the classroom door. And we're saying that that's not effective, that you have to open up the classroom door. But if you open it up and you're judgmental, then it goes negative. If you open it up with support, you've got the ideas and practices, and you build actually a sense of community. And that's what we've been doing. So those are the 8 pieces of the strategy. And then in terms of results, if I jump ahead, we started to get results within 2 years. And we have had incremental results every year. And these are the results. Literacy and numeracy, deeply defined, because I want to make sure we're not just talking about reading the words on a page, increased 14% across the 4,000 schools. So that's good. We're still moving up now. Number 2, high school graduation increased from 68% graduation rate to 79%. Remember, this was flat line for 5 years. And then we take it, and then it starts to go up 2%, 3%, 2%, and it's still climbing, still going up. And then another measure of the morale of teachers. When we started, if you took any 3 or 4 years, the percentage of new teachers leaving the profession by year 4 during the 90s was 32% on the average. Since we started, in a given 3 years, now we look at it, any cohort is now about 9%. So it's not all attributed to what we did. We didn't cause everything to happen, but it is definitely a better place to be a teacher in Ontario now in 2010 than it was in 2002 or 2000 or 1998. So that's important. And then there's something on that's becoming very clear now, and I want to make the distinction between individual capacity and collective capacity. And collective capacity is when, if we were showing, as I did at Microsoft yesterday, video clips, you would see a video clip where the principal and 3 or 4 teachers are focusing on the improvement of writing together. They're looking at student work. They're saying, how do we monitor the individual development of each pupil in this school? What do we have to do, given these results, to change our teaching to get better results? And they work on that with focus together all the time over the period of time. And that represents to me collective focus, because it's the collective efficacy of the teachers and the principal working together. And so this is important. This is from these particular 3 points I'm going to make now, is from a study that just came out in July from the Wallace Foundation. You can Google it and find it's called Leadership and Learning. And the Wallace Foundation, the researchers had a very big sample in the US, and they were trying to trace, they did trace, the relationship between leadership and impact on student learning. And they had 3 findings. One, that collective leadership has a stronger influence on student achievement than individual leadership. If I just stop on the role of the principal for a moment, because we have changed that role, and it is very important that this happens, is that the single finding within this work about the role of the principal is that there's one factor that stands out as twice as important as any other factor in terms of having the impact, and it's this one: the degree to which the principal participates as a learner in working with teachers to help make improvements. So I want only that phrase, participates as a learner. And this is exactly what our principals are doing, becoming, they're not being, they're not running the school in an authoritarian way, but they're definitely focusing and shaping and helping to develop the culture in that respect. So that's one finding. Second finding, almost all educators associated with high-performing schools have a greater sense of influence on decisions. In other words, the more you get it communal, the more that everybody says, we're having an impact here. We have influence over how the whole school. If you stay individual classroom, you have influence in your own classroom, but you can't control the things that surround that, such as the school and climate, for example. And the third one, school leaders have an impact on student achievement through their influence on teachers' motivation and working conditions, not through their direct knowledge and not through their direct one-to-one. So when we want to be clear, when we say principal as instructional leader, doesn't mean the principal has to work individually with every teacher. It would be impossible. But but the principal works indirectly to enable teachers to work together with focus, monitoring, getting better results. So this confirms, this piece of research that came out in July, confirms what we were already experiencing. Like some OECD PISA lessons. I don't want to say too much about these because Andreas Schleicher, who's the head of PISA, will be presenting his analysis on September 13th in Toronto. But not only have they been comparing school systems around the world, they've also been going beneath the results to say what's causing this. What are some of the things causing this? And I won't give you his results because he hasn't announced them till the 13th, so I shouldn't do it first. He should do it first. But basically, they're identical to what I've been talking about. He said those countries, remember, he's looking at the countries in terms of their results. We will get new additional PISA results in December 2010 on, I think, on literacy again. So this will update it even more. But he said those countries that are successful have a strong focus at the center, what I call the guiding coalition, politicians and the Ministry of Education combining to focus very much on and commitment and belief that all children can learn. They not only focus, they do a small number of ambitious priorities, almost the words that I use for ourselves. They invest in capacity building by building up the capacity of principals and teachers individually and in combination. They monitor and intervene around high expectations. They have non-punitive accountability. And so all of the things I've been talking about, and these are a bit difficult to do actually, but they're not all that difficult. We say we're taking the mystery out of whole system reform. It's not simple, but it's not really so mysterious that it can't be figured out. That's our attitude towards it. And most, I guess I'll say, politicians go for the, I guess we could say the silver bullet, the solutions that are more easily legislated, like improving, requiring grades, like having testing that, and that these are a part of our system actually, but they're not the drivers. The driver is capacity building, and the assessment is a means of helping you go further into capacity building. And it does have to combine, let us say, pressure and support, so that if you don't have any pressure points, then the system goes along in inertia. If you have top-down pressure, too much centralization, then you get that kind of lack of ownership. So I think we'll see in the PISA analysis, and you'll be able to see this in 10 days from now or less, that this confirmation of what we're concluding.